Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of Esoterics Today. I am your host, Amber Chamberlain, the Suburban Lightworker, and we have our other fantastic host who is with us all along the way, Satara Jules Lightbringer. C, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And yourself?
I am doing well. I'm tired and a bit shop worn from duties assigned and otherwise, but I'm doing well. It's very good to see you. And I'm excited, Satara, to have with us today a special guest. We'll introduce her a bit later, but we have with us today Nimue, who is a Fae and Elemental healer. And we're going to be talking all about, you guessed it, the fairy realm, the Fae and Elemental realm, and who's there, what's there, and how to get you there too. So that's pretty fascinating to me because it's not a place I spend a lot of my time. So Satara, at least not consciously, Satara, can you just introduce this realm to us? Many of us who will be listening to this podcast will have a lot of experience with it. Some will have none, and some will be somewhere in between with glimpses. So can you talk a little bit about the Fae and Elemental realm?
Yes, of course. I mean, as with everything else here, you're just talking about densities when it comes to vibrations. So it depends on where you are vibrationally as to whether you're a good match with this at the moment or not. A lot of people will have worked and played with the fairies as children, especially because when we have that certainty about us as a child, that works perfectly. You know, all children have this tiny bit of a sense of humor kind of going on, which is very much how the Fae will work. You know, they might be very incredible workers. Some of the things that they can do, which we would look at as like magic as a child, you know, they are literally manipulating time and space to be able to create portals, better growth for a tree, whatever they're deciding to do. So the Fae are very, very linked into the flora and fauna of this planet. We have things that we call divas as well. Now, the divas are the governors of the plants and flowers. So a diva will look after a particular type of flower, but not only a particular type, it will also be a particular area that they will look after. If there's a flower that is particularly unwell, a diva will spend their life with this flower to make sure that it would bloom and be perfect. So they're very much into the architecture of flowers, the architecture of plants, trees, all of nature. I'm talking, of course, when I'm saying all this, I'm trying to keep it on this planet because the Fae and Elementals are throughout creation. They're not just here. Some of the main ones that I connect with these days are in Andromeda. However, Amber's giving me a look now. You know, they're not just here, they're everywhere. But yes, I particularly work with the Fae on Andromeda at the moment. But as a child, I worked with the Fae here from some of my very earliest memories are of always having Fae around me. So what I'm going to do, now I've given a bit of a snapshot into that, I'm going to hand over to our very special guest and let her give her take on how she works with our wonderful fractals in fairy form.
Before we do introduce Nimue, I feel like by way of a little better introduction, as I've gotten to know her just a few minutes as we've talked before the show, I want to mention a couple evocative and provocative things that I picked up in talking with you, Nimue. As a Fae healer, your main elemental is Tribeca. I think I heard that, yes. And you'll tell us more about Tribeca. And when we were talking about your actual work with the human realm, with the human species, you mentioned using a client's archetypes and stories to help guide their lives sort of a combination of Jungian and expressive arts viewpoint woven in to the Fey realm narrative, or just the realm. So I do that just sort of to whet the appetite of the folks who are going to be listening to this. So can you talk more in sort of response to or pick up where Sitara left off from your perspective about the Fae and elemental realm?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Amber and Sitara, for having me on your show. I'm so excited to be here. I think you have a wonderful, wonderful show, and I love listening to your program. So thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate it. Ever since, well, as Sitara mentioned, when we're children, we're more open and we're able to be aware of, when we're little, some people have what they call imaginary friends, or you can see spirit, or you're more connected to the fairy realm or different realms, whatever, dragons, whatever your soul signature is that you are aware of, I could say, because we all have these capacities. It's just what your signature is and what your essence is working with. So for me, ever since I was a little child, I, like many children, could see the Fae. I had an imaginary horse that I would ride. Her name was Snowball. And eventually she transformed, when she felt that I wasn't scared of her anymore, into Tribeca. And Tribeca is an elemental, and elementals are part of the family of Fae. So some people, just like there's different variations of species of animals and insects and bugs and humans on the planet. So with the elementals, you could be a fairy, or fae, as we prefer to be called. You could be a pixie or a leprechaun or a gnome or a troll, or resonate with any of that's, to me, elementals. Also, from other realms, not earth realms, when you see them from other planets, for me, in my case, they were orbs of light. So either feeling them as orbs of light, seeing them, feeling, have you ever just looked kind of zoned out, and you're just kind of daydreaming and not really paying attention, and then it's almost like a heat wave, like a little signature? That could be the Fae as well, or an elemental trying to get your attention. So to me, I was always I thought it was normal. I thought everyone could see them when I was a child. And then when I would talk about it to my other little friends, as a child, they thought, I don't see them. I don't know what you're talking about. So then, and also as a child, we moved a lot. So from kindergarten through 12th grade, I went to 13 different schools. So I constantly was the new child on the block, and I had to learn how to become friends with people very quickly. I didn't know how to sustain relationships, but making friends very quickly. I soon found that I preferred being alone and in the realm of the Fae, because people didn't understand me. The muggles, as I say, didn't understand me. A few did, but most of them, through conditioning and different ages, that's make believe, right? But I love to tell people, there's a part in Harry Potter when when Harry is asking Dumbledore, well, is this real or not? And I'm sure both of you can understand this if you've ever seen Harry Potter. I can't quote it exactly, but to the fact, Dumbledore said, it doesn't matter. What does it matter if it's real or not, if it's in your imagination, or if not, because it's real when you believe it's real. When you align yourself into a frequency of a different world, of a different dimension, of a fractal of your multidimensional self, and you feel it in your heart, not in your mind, but and you lean into it with your heart, that is when you know what is quote unquote real for you. Now, it is a fine line, because as human beings on Earth right now, we need to pay bills, we need to work, we need to raise our families, we need to do all this regular, life stuff. But when you infuse it with magic, when you infuse it with your own truth, when you infuse it as you are an ascended human, ascending as we're birthing the new earth, that is what brings joy to most of us. I know for me, if I didn't have magic in my life, I couldn't be here. You know, it's what really is the joy of life for me. So rather than being ashamed of it and hiding from you know, this type of work, I thought, why don't I delve deeper into it and see what happens in my life? And what I found is, as I was working with Tribeca is an elemental, as I mentioned, and can shapeshift between a dragon, a phoenix, and a griffin, depending on the work that I'm doing or depending on the mood that I'm in. Or sometimes I'll be woken up in the middle of the night, just, you know, to say, hey, pay attention to this dream, write it down. So he'll, you know, wake me up in the middle of the night. As I have done this, I've found out, wow, you know what? Synchronicity is falling into my lap. Things that are happening that I've wanted to manifest in my life, meeting the right people, being asked to be on this show, you know, meeting people that have said, oh, I wanted to work with a counselor, but I didn't want to be told, you know, that it was just my imagination and it's silly and I shouldn't pay attention to that. So there is now more than ever, especially what's going on as I won't use the word because then it might get tagged and I won't say it, but what is going on unprecedented in our life right now, I choose to call, instead of that 19, I choose to call it Ascension 20, because really we are birthing the new earth together. And as we find our way as healers, as light workers, as earth angels, as star seeds, whatever term you wish to choose to work with, as we line up with our higher self and do what we chose to come to this earth for this time around, it gives permission to others to step into their sovereign selves and truly be that light in the darkness. We could either choose to succumb to fear, because let's be honest, it's scary times right now for a lot of people. Nothing is promised. I'm living day to day to try to live my best life and be that calm, centered, peaceful, joyful presence, not only in my family's life, but in my friends and my clients' life as well. So how do we do that? Always choose love. And for me, the Fae realm and working with the elementals is mostly, the ones that I work with, there's some naughty ones out there, is about love, is really truly about being that that light worker, that love, that center of joy, because that's what the Fae love. We love play, we love beauty, we love music, we love, you know, things that entice us and excite us. And so as we open our hearts and get out of our mind space, but open our imagination and really ask our guides, our totem animals, our spirit friends, our spirit allies, our intergalactic family of light to help us and assist us, we create space for more light workers to do the same. And that's how we birth the new earth, in my opinion.
Well, I love that entire expression that you just gave around elementals and Fae. Sort of between Satara, you did some beautiful sort of teaching about that realm at the beginning and introducing it, and I think Nimue, you gave some real life application of what that can look like in human beings' lives right now. Something that comes to mind is, you know, I'm acutely aware of my place on what is the organic matrix, the organic grid. I'm aware that we're all placed in just that right nodal point that is going to need our energetic understanding and our various workforce. We're like a workforce on that node.
Yes.
And I'm so reminded when I hear about the playful childhood, when I hear about going in for the lab, and Satara, you've talked about this before in other conversations with me. I've been I didn't have any of that playfulness as a child. I've been just as serious as I am right now. I was then. I've been doing my job just as is, just as each year went by. And although I have a wicked sense of humor and I'm kind of ribald and a lot of other things, and make my own fun, I can see one of the jobs that you do, Nimue, and what you're sort of mirroring to clients is how to engage the humor, how to engage the fun, how to engage the childlike spirit, how to engage the imagination at a time when our human species has had the construct of play and imagination programmed away from them.
Yes, absolutely.
To create, it's a really, we can be devoid of humor and humor and devoid of imagination, because it is truly the imagination, and you practice it, and I can see that there's a lot of practicing of that in the Fae and elemental world, because we are architects. The human species are amazing engineers and architects. We literally build the constructs that is the planet and planet system and the functions. We're the builder race, so to speak. And so we have to have your kind who can teach us and help us remember it this way. So you're there on your nodal point in your work, what I would see as a work group, doing that very specific job. And what a beautiful conversation. So Tara, responding, I guess, maybe to what Nimue was saying, but I'm also thinking about you as a child and how this sounds so familiar to me about your own playfulness, your misadventures and adventures. Can you speak to some of that for our listeners in response to Nimue?
Yeah, totally. It's the Fae that taught me to go and borrow spiders and put them in my parents' bed. It's that. Yeah, oh yeah. My dad is terrified of spiders. He only has to see one, he shrieks and runs. Even at his age now of 76, he's out of the room. It is hilarious. So yeah, I have got a bit of a streak of that, and that comes from there. Because pranks are very, very much what the Fae like to do. They're nothing that will ever harm anybody, but they'll be enough to make someone react in some way, which is then hilarious later. Not always quite to the person that it was intended for, but it certainly starts to rub off later down the line. So when that happened and there was the blood-curdling scream, my mother was laughing so badly she could barely breathe. Yeah?
Yeah.
Of course, they know it's me, because I'm an only child. So I'm going to get off the hook. You know what I mean? But then I would find it funny. Well, I couldn't be told off because one's nearly crying with tears. The other one's like, where's the bloody spider?
But so Tara, how did you engage the Fae and elemental realm when you were a small child, besides playing hijinks on your poor father?
Oh yeah, hijinks on my dad. I still do it to this day. The last time I got in with it was last year, so nothing's ever changed. You know what I mean? And he just looks at me now and he just kind of, you going for a walk, are you? Where are you going and what are you going for? Yeah. Like,
that's cute.
Just going to pick some flowers. Anyhow, so for me, I was brought up in the middle of nowhere on a farm. Our closest road was like 2.5 miles away from where I lived.
Oh, how wonderful.
So the bottom of my kind of garden as a child was ancient woodland, and mainly. So I was dealing with more of what you would think really of like elves, predominantly. Smattering of Fae, but not quite so much, because Fae prefer to be in more open places. They like trees, but they don't necessarily need to be in them. you know. So yeah, so that's where I kind of roamed as a child. My aim in the morning was to have breakfast and disappear till like sunset in the woods, and that's all.
So lucky.
So there was a beautiful stream ran through the one, so it's like a steep drop. We were like 1,500 feet up where I lived, so it was really high up. So of course the woodland then sloped down and then back up the other side, so it just went for miles. So I spent my time there because I knew I could be me there. I didn't need to have any adults watching, because I'm doing this from age 4, bear in mind. I've gone at age 4, I'm out, I've left the building, because I didn't like the humaning. I prefer
exactly.
the fun and interest that I could get when I sat down quietly and the fae would come to me.
Yes.
And that was far more entertaining to do that. And it's like I can remember one telling me to watch this tree, and they made a portal out of the tree. They literally opened it up, and there was all tree sparkles and everything going. It was so pretty, but it was beautiful. Of course, at that age, I wasn't really appreciating what I was being shown.
Right.
Because the human brain has to still, you know, I was in a limited body, shall we say, for what they were showing me.
Right.
At that sort of time, I'd be about, I don't know, 6 or 7 when that was happening. But they were showing me that they could create this portal and I could walk through with them, and I could be somewhere else.
Yes.
That was nowhere near where I'd left, but they always took me back so I could go home.
Yes. Yes.
Where did you go, Steve?
Andromeda.
Mostly?
Mostly. There's a planet on the outer quadrant of, well, I mean, Andromeda is huge, but there's this wonderful planet that's called Na, N-A-A. So it's literally Na. And it's just incredible, absolutely incredible. And they took me there because they knew that I had a deep affinity to the crystalline beings. And Na's crystalline is the most diverse in this universe. So therefore they were taking me there to remember them. Not that we have any of them here, but to remember them so that when I was able to be around crystals that we have here later on, I would understand them because I understood their predecessors.
Yes.
Yeah, if that, so bit random. But yeah, on Na, there's the most incredible trees. If you imagine fiber optics, so imagine the clear cable with all the rainbow colours just going through, and something that looks like a weeping willow like that.
Sort of like from the movie, that beautiful movie Avatar.
Yes, that's
yes. Yeah, but better than the movie.
But better.
Yeah.
Ooh. So, Tara, I think this is another interesting moment to point out to the listeners that when we travel, we typically, and Tara and I certainly, this might be a good point to point this out, that we typically drop our, what Tara and I like to refer to, Nimue, as our skin suits.
Yeah.
That we drop the form. Were you aware as a child that you had dropped your form?
Yes, because I had to be told that I had to be put back where I'd left. They couldn't place me back on the grid somewhere else because I had to pick me up to be able to go back for supper.
Oh, I just love that. I just love just to go. Tara, you are such a font of beautiful experience. I love how I can just sort of go into these places. And Nimue, some of these things you were talking about reminded me of conversations, Tara, you and I have had about fae and elementals in that realm, and the freedom that you experienced as a human child, to just and because of your place on the Gaia, on our mother's grid, that gave you such immediate access. Now, Nimue, could you describe anything similar to that kind of experience as a child?
Well, what Sitara was mentioning, where she grew up and the beautiful nature that surrounded her, that was not my experience. So I'm so excited that Sitara had that. For me, I think that many times the Fae have saved my life in a way of I dealt with a lot of trauma growing up as well, and my father was an alcoholic. He's passed now, and pretty abusive. And so when I would go hide like into the closet and I'd take my teddy bear, that's when oftentimes I would go out of my body and into the fairy realm. So they were very protective of me, and they were very nurturing and loving to me, because I, being I guess a parentified child, I had to be very serious as well. Everything had to be perfect. I had to be very serious. So my playfulness came out, and that's when my love of dance started as a child through movement. Part of the reason why I became a movement psychotherapist is because when you're in your body, you have nothing to hold back. There's nothing to lie for you. It's the purest form of expression through the vibration of your body. So moving and playful and laughing and being out in nature, whether it was imaginary, quote unquote imaginary, or in real life, that was the sweetest moments in my life, because I had the freedom to move and play and laugh and not get in trouble. The old adage of children are meant to be seen and not heard, that was definitely
Yes,
what
my household too.
Yes. So
yeah,
it
mine
was really
too. It's
nice
our generation, I think.
Yes, exactly. So it
Yeah.
was really nice to be able to let loose and just kind of go somewhere else.
So you mentioned the experience of trauma that's here on our planet, and I too, I would be more akin to your story. I'm a hybrid of the two of you in this discussion, because I grew up on a farm, very loose, and it saved my life that I was able to be out in the elements. And I first met what I know to be what I call, what I identified as Jesus, or and then eventually because I grew up in a very Southern Christian part of the United States, so I developed a very direct one-on-one relationship, but that was through the wind and the sunlight. So I perceived that which was Christed via light and sun, and the sound of leaves moving in the breeze on trees. I felt I was being spoken to. And I get chills just saying that.
I do too. Hearing you saying that, I'm getting chills up and down my body, because I resonate with that same thing.
Right. And so I learned much later. I was one of my teachers on planet for many years, and I've now learned to say teachers on planet, because I have teachers off planet. Yeah. Well, I learned to make that differentiation for folks. But one of them many years ago, and she was a teacher in my life from the Barbara Brennan School. Sitara, did you know the Barbara Brennan School?
Yes. The first book that made me feel possibly almost normal was Barbara Brennan's Hands of Light.
Yes, honey.
Light Emerging.
Yes.
I thought, thank God, there's somebody else.
There's somebody else. Well, so Barbara, one of the teacher that was with me for about 30 years, Isabel from Energy Pulse, and she's actually in Seattle, Nimue. She was one of the first people to point out to me, to help me understand how I would leave the actual mechanics of, and I know the pathway in my body, how to come in and go out, and it's very important to come in and go out the same way you went out, and the same way you come back. To Sitara's expression about being told, we got to put you back.
Yeah.
We're just going to pick you up. Be careful.
Be careful, because we do have to maintain that silver cord, or those cords to the
absolutely.
Right. but for similar reasons, I would travel and come back, but I have less of a memory of where I went and what I did during those very stressful human times, but more of an understanding of how well I was cared for, and how well I was, and how much love I was shown.
Absolutely.
And that's what you were speaking about the the Fey and elemental realm that you spent your time in. So I'm sure that I've been quite supported and quite informed by this realm we're talking about today. I just don't have, where some people will have memories and experiences with, we would be talking about unicorns and pixies, as you were mentioning. And I mean, literally this whole gnomes.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
When you mentioned, Amber, you mentioned that you were raised in a Christian household. So I was raised Catholic from my family. My father is Mexican, my mother's American, and so religion and machismo was very much part of my narrative growing up. And so I remember being at, I think I was in second grade, and I was going to a Catholic school at a mission in San Juan Capistrano that the missionaries, early missionaries built. And they had a lovely little church we had to go to. It was all, made of stone and things like that. But for me, and I didn't understand why I had to go into a creepy little closet to talk to an old man about my sins. I did not understand that. To me, I felt closest to Yeshua, Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, when I was out in the garden. So when I was out in the garden, they had a statue of Mother Mary and St. Francis of Assisi. And they had beautiful roses of all kinds and different kinds of flowers. When I would go there, it was incredible. All these birds would always come whenever I would show up there, everywhere, butterflies, birds. And I felt like I was communing with nature. And to me, that was church. That was my temple.
Right.
That was holiness. So when people kept saying, we have to go to church, to the building, I was like, well, we're going the wrong way. It's out in nature.
It's down there. It's out there.
I love the idea of the creepy cupboard.
Oh, God, of the creepy cupboard.
I just love that.
Don't get me started, people, don't get me started, because this part of the timeline I'm on, it is very much working on the inversion,
of the creepy cupboard.
Of the creepy damn cupboard.
Yeah, or should we just call them creepy closets?
The creepy closet.
It was a creepy closet. It was a creepy closet. I didn't want to.
It's no joke. So. This has been the stuff of which, this is sort of the, how do we say, the agenda that has been running our planetary system. I would refer to it on this show as the inorganic matrix, and in a way of describing the difference between the organicity that naturally surrounds both the planetary grid system and the surrounding net or grid natural to planetary systems, and how we've had a lot of disruption and inversion. But I think I'm going to be coming more and more to these discussions, Satara, as we go, and with our guests, with a whole lot more understanding of the shadow, and I think people need to hear it, and they want to. They're hungry for understanding. As we get this much closer in the Yuga, in the 25,000 year cycle, we've gotten into a period where this is, no kidding, time to become informed.
Yes.
And so it's so beautiful to be able to talk about these realms. See, when we were more of a love and light tribe, there goes Satara's eyes rolling out of her head. I mean, she looks like she's going to throw up. I'm sure this was exhausting for you. While the rest of us were over here getting a grip on ourselves and all our love and light. But And because I'm so serious, I could only go but so far with that in the first place. But I'm so glad that we're being able to bring, and I'm afraid that the Fae and elemental realm was very much a focal of the love and light, love and light. We could get a little bit lost in hearts, rainbows, pixies, and unicorn.
Yeah, farting rainbows, you know, the whole lot.
The whole lot. And I'm so glad, though, to have you here as our guest, Nimue, to remind us about the importance of that realm from the lightness and the lightness of being, the freedom, the joy, the love, the exploration of that energetic that we have to have as builders, as those who are taking the planetary system to her next expression, or as we're in the midst of it at this 0 point stage now. It's so important to bring all the points to the table.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And certainly the Fae and the elemental realm is a very important, because listen, they've been here watching this hockey puck situation and laughing their asses off at the foolishness, and also having to lift us out of it to bring us to them for our own well-being so we could stay on the planet. Nimue, there's no way you or someone like myself, I always say, or you, Satara, with what we were going to have to face to be here at this time,
right.
we're going to be able to do it in the bleakness that exists, in the inversion, if we were not occasionally dropped out and dropped into, or learned how to then move into these other places and spaces. Now, for me today, a lot of my recuperative and recovery environments and enormous love environments are extra dimensional, planetary. They take me home. I go home, and home is a few places and a few beings. And I go home, and I'm astounded by the level of love that I experience. And then I come back and do some more work. That must be what you're talking about too. And Satara, I see that with you too. How on earth you're more to me this oracle that has come to hold this time. And how on earth could you stay here in the human form without an enormous amount of day tripping?
Oh, yeah. And night tripping. Yeah. And any
day and night tripping out to come back, to be able to hold what you hold here. Because I see very much oracular. And for yourself, Nimue, as a teacher during this time, as a sort of a counselor of this time. We are the new counselors, Nimue. We are the new breed. We're showing how those services are going to be done. So at this point, I think what the folks are going to really want to hear as we come up on this last little 15 minutes or so is, how do we explore what things can, particularly the two of you, starting with you, Nimue, what would you encourage people to do who want to consciously reach into the realm to bring more of it into their lives? What would you recommend? Maybe a few things.
Well, yes, there are a lot of things that I would recommend. The very first is get out in nature, especially with all of technology, and, they say things about 5G. I don't know if it's true or not, but, being out in nature purifies our body, cleanses our aura, cleanses our energetics, and really puts us in tune with who we are, our sovereign selves. So whether that means going to a park in your local neighborhood, being trees, actually hugging a tree, it's fun. Don't worry about the ants, being able to go on a hike, go to the ocean, wherever you can connect. If that's not possible, if you live, New York City or something like that, the next best thing to do is create your environment the way you wish to invite these beings in. So put plants in your house. They love crystals, crystals and the elementals and fae are very in tune with one another. And in fact, I received information that many of the elementals and fae did choose to go into the crystal kingdom when things got too much for them, you can say. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Some went into different realms, galaxies. Some went into the crystal kingdom, and that's why many of us are very attracted to crystals, and we don't know why. They have their own little beings in there. And then the third thing that I would recommend is just self-care. You know, being a therapist yourself, you know, self-care is so important. If we don't fill up our own cups, we will be empty and we won't be able to give. So many of us, women especially, are givers. We will give and give and give until our cup is empty, but then that just leaves us hangry, irritable, you know, grumpy. So if you've had a particularly stressful day, take an Epsom salt bath. It takes nothing to put on some nice music, light a candle, and just dump a bunch of salt and essential oils if you have it in your bath, and just soak and imagine all this like energetic gunk coming off of you. And I'll unplug it and just let the water slowly go down as I'm just laying there, and just imagine everything, you know, washing away the anger, the stress, the worries, the frustrations. And then when you come out, it's revitalized. I mean, water is such it's more than just a cleaning agent. Like it's so revitalizing to our soul. So self-care is very important. And then developing some type of meditation, doing yoga, movement in your body, knowing how to focus your mind and go to these beautiful realms. Even if you have no capacity to go out in nature, right? Our mind, our psyche, ourselves, that's where freedom lies. Nobody can take that away from us. So even if you're, you know, in a cell somewhere locked up in jail, you can still travel to these places in your mind's eye. So really being in touch, going into your grateful heart. I really mean that. It's so much about dropping into your heart, opening that, breathing in, imagining, you know, and that's what helps you through meditation. Is you go, for me, I go to my sacred space. I travel there. There's a portal, you know, and then I travel to different realms. So I work with people in, you know, we can't control what happens to us. We can only control how we react to it and the choices that we make. So by being that in the center of the storm, calmness, despite, you know, masks and this and that, and oh my goodness, and how am I going to pay the bills? It's better to come from a place in your heart where you're like calm, centered, open, grateful, and then you're magnetizing more of that. Yes, please, and more into your life. Those job opportunities, the right people, these meeting like-minded individuals throughout the world. That's when you get to relax, feel calm in your body, and then play and say, oh, I'm so excited. I have a, you know, another fave friend, or I have a dragon friend, or I have an elf friend, or I have a, you know, Andromedan friend, whatever it is. When you find these connections and you're talking to people and it just clicks, you know that you're not the only one. And that's really, you know, the separation of self and duality of when you feel like, am I the only one? Am I the only one who's suffering? That's what really is the veil that covers us, is thinking that we are suffering alone. But that's what's beautiful about what's happening right now, is that for the first time in this recorded time of history right now, we're all undergoing a similar trauma and PTSD that will come out of after this, because life may not be the same moving forward. I hope it isn't, because the old systems had to break down in order for something new to be birthed. I got really squirreled, sorry about that. The more that we are grounded, the more that we are finding and following our hearts and opening to those energies and being calm, then we can relax into our joyful heart and bring more joy to others. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
I love all that, because these are what you're talking about. I call often what you described spiritual hygiene, energy hygiene. Yes. People are going to really, they're discovering now, if they haven't created energy hygiene, what the results of that are.
Chaos. Depression.
And So you just described some beautiful energy hygiene. If I wanted to invite a pixie into my life, how would I do that?
Mhm. Well, I'm sure Satara has her answers as well. But for me, what I did with my children growing up is we created fairy gardens. So outside, we would have a little house that we would create for fairies and leave. They love sweet things, so maybe a little bit of a little cake or something with a little bit of honey on it, or they love feathers, trinkets, shiny things. You know, it could be any, like when you're making children's jewelry, like the little trinkets and stuff like that. I wouldn't put the most valuable things out there because crows love those things as well, and then they'll be gone. But so creating a little space for them, talking to them. Oh, I wanted to mention about when Satara said that they could be a little naughty. They love to hide things. So if ever you find like, where's that ring, or where are my keys, or blah, 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 and you know you always put it back in its place and it's gone, ask the Fae, please can you return my item to me? And the other thing I also do is, this is probably my old Catholic upbringing, St. Anthony, whatever was lost, may it please be found, and fairies work with them. And without a shadow of a doubt, it's always returned. Might take a couple of days, but it's always returned. So, and also like having a brownie in your house is really nice because they're a type of elemental that love being in the home, and they keep the energy really clean. Back in the, like the mythology and stories of it is that they like to clean your home, and, you know, like the shoemakers and stuff like that. But for me, the way I see it is that they energetically keep your home clean.
Did
and
you say brownie?
Yeah, little brownies. Little brownies. They're like little gnomes type of thing.
I'm gonna get on that. I could use the brownie support. I love that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna work on that because Satara, after the guest we had for dragons, I got Patrice. So she came, and she's a beautiful powder blue to very dark azure, depending on what she's bringing.
Ooh.
Beautiful. But she's just her color. I don't actually see a form. I just see her color.
Mm-hmm.
And so now that you mentioned brownies, I think I'm going to gather that up. Thank you very much. Satara, what were you going to say?
I would say that there's an awful lot of light workers on the planet that would be able to offer workshops, sessions, whatever, if you want to actually connect with these type of beings. I know that I probably haven't done this sort of work since the 90s, but I did used to do one-to-one sessions with people to be able to get them to start to move into the right vibration, first of all, to attract the Fae to them, and actually then gave them tools to be able to work with and use to actually start to move into that frequency fully. You know, there's not going to just be me, there's going to be thousands of us around, you know, and it's just sharing that when it's something that you know well. And like, I dealt with the fairies pretty much, I would say 70% of anybody I worked with was Fae up until my late 20s.
Oh, wow.
Wow. You know? So that's what I thought. I think you're very right. You're very adept with this community.
Yeah, which is why, you know, I still work with spiders and things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have at that.
And I also... Yes, I like spiders too. And I'm also launching my own practice as well, themagicalcounselor.com. So I am happy to connect with people as well if anyone is interested in wanting to connect more with the Fae realm and just even work through their own spiritual hygiene of what they wish to manifest into their life during these times.
So that was themagicalcounselor.com, and we'll be sure to put that in on the SoundCloud notification. This has been a delightful hour together. Nimue, thank you for bringing your sweet spirit, your open heart, your love, and your just willingness to share your personal stories and your teaching capabilities with our community of listeners. We get shared far and wide. We never really, we don't always know whose lives we touch in these discussions, but we definitely know that people are increasingly becoming hungry for healing on their own terms, growing on their own terms, and increasingly their own terms are becoming more free, more sovereign, and figuring out their soul signature in the way in which they heal, the way in which they grow, the way in which they enjoy their lives. So Tara, it is always so good to spend time with you. It's always refreshing. It's like coming home for me. Yeah, I know. You should see her.
I can't wait to meet you in person someday.
Yes,
I hope I get to meet both of you someday.
Yes.
It'll happen, but it'll happen.
It'll happen. Yes. And so you all have now hopefully enjoyed and listened to another hour of Esoterics Today. I am your co-host, Amber Chamberlain, the Suburban Lightworker. We have your other co-host here, Satara Jules Lightbringer. Thank you, sister, for being with me today too. Thank you also to our special guest, Nimue, and we look forward to more work and checking in with you from time to time and seeing what's going on and what's new in the Fae world and the elemental world.
Thank you.
So Tara, if you will send us out.
I will indeed. So I just want to thank everybody for taking the time to spend with us. Whenever you pick up this recording, it's always a pleasure to actually meet people on our show, to bring some different facets into people's realities. And we will be back with our next show, just myself and Amber, next month. So take care, and we will be real soon. Bye.
Bye.